Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives. And today we're going to be discussing episodes 89 and 90 of Steven Universe Future, Beach City Drift, and Restaurant Wars. And as always, odd numbered episode first. So, let's talk about Beach City Drift. And this episode marks the return of Kevin. You know, that one character from Alone Together when Steven and Connie first fused into Stevani. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, pretty much what's going on is sorry, the camera's moving. Chandy's getting on the bed. Anyway, like I was saying, this episode actually starts with Greg buying a car, specifically a car called a Dondai, a brand of car that he's always wanted ever since he was young, but never really had the moolah for. Well, since he's now swimming in it, he decided to buy one himself. So as such, he's just kind of tending to it, and of course, Steven is kind of enjoying himself while pretending to drive it. But while they're messing with it, another car comes to the car wash to get cleaned. It looks like basically a sports car. And the one driving it is Kevin in all of his douchiness, who even to the point who showcases he's still kind of a dick as he calls Greg Grandpa and tells him to just wash the car. However, Steven and Connie still remember this guy, and well, they're not exactly happy that he's there. Steven showcases it more than Connie, as Steven pretty much starts yelling at Kevin to not call his dad Grandpa, and that he's a regular pa, and Kevin has no idea who the hell Steven is. Or more specifically, he just does not remember him. And so while Steven tries to continue calling him out, Kevin just kind of is like, whatever, and eventually just leaves without paying. As such, Greg wants to know why Steven is so bent out of shape, and so Steven and Connie explain what happened when they were first Stevani and when they first encountered Kevin, and how even when they told him that they didn't want to dance, he kept pushing it and didn't respect their feelings. So he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry that you dealt with that," but he just tells him, "Look, the guy's just a jerk, not worth the time of day. Just ignore him." But, well, even as they rolls into the evening, Steven and Connie are still thinking about Kevin. And while Connie isn't showcasing it as much as Steven, she is still thinking about it. And so Steven and Connie think that maybe they want to do something to get back at Kevin. Make him start thinking, as Connie puts it. And well, they actually think they have a way of doing it, because Kevin mentioned that the reason he wanted the car cleaned is because he was going to a race later. The only problem is that Steven and Connie are too young to drive, or at the very least, they are, but someone else isn't. And so we then cut to elsewhere in Beach City, kind of on basically but near one of their hills or mountains or whatever, as there is a patch of road that goes down the mountain and to the bottom, and essentially that's the race course. Start at the top, work your way down, and first one to the end wins. And so Kevin has just been driving around and pretty much winning every race. And so after winning one against Jenny, he once again gloats about how he's the man, how he's the unbeatable, who else has the balls to go up against him. And sure enough, once he says that, the Donda ends up pulling up, and stepping out of the driver's seat is Stevani, who pretty much says that they can take Kevin on any time, any place. And so Kevin, when he sees Stevani, finally remembers, "Oh yeah, that's where I saw those kids. They're you!" And he just starts acting like a complete douche nozzle, which gets under Stevani's skin something fierce. As such, Stevani ends up challenging him to a race, and Kevin pretty much accepts, but he still acts like a complete dick about it. And pretty much the more Stevani gets angry, the more Kevin pushes. And we later learn that the reason he's doing this is because he just finds it legitimately funny. So yeah, he's a douche in every sense of the word. But pretty much they do end up racing, so they do end up racing, and so Stevani takes the car up to the top of the mountain. Kevin takes his sports car, and well, so the race begins. They pretty much just start driving all over the place, and for a first-time driver, Stevani actually puts up a good fight, as they're able to maneuver around these sharp turns, actually learn with a skid, and actually are managing themselves pretty well, and even keeping up with Kevin. Although even with Stevani's apparent skill, Kevin is still able to get under their skin by constantly keep throwing more stuff at them, which even it's again he just finds funny. At one point, he even feeds them a sob story about how he acts like this because he has a brother who's been sick their entire lives, and if he keeps up this act, maybe no one will notice his pain. And that almost earns pity points from Stevani until he starts laughing at how much they almost fell for that. At which point they continue going through the race, and Stefani just gets more and more determined to go after Kevin until something happens. Remember back in the Alone Together episode where when Stefani was at the dance alone, they started hallucinating about this weird about being covered in a disco ball and everyone rising up and so forth? Well, something similar happens here. Only in this case, the road see everything seems to vanish except for Stefani, the Dandai, and Kevin in his car. All that's left of this all more specifically, it's them and the road. And while Stefani is confused by this, they're still going to no, we have to beat him. We have to beat him. We have to beat him. But then they also notice that the road behind them is starting to crumble. But even that doesn't seem to shake them as they keep saying, no, we have to beat him. No, we have to beat him. No, we have to beat him. But ultimately, they get brought out of their stupor as from Kevin's car, they see what looks like a demonic version of Kevin's face rush at them, and it ends up scaring them so much that they end up pulling the car over and unfusing back into Steven and Connie. As such, they seem to get exit out of the hallucination, and after Steven kind of does a spot check and makes sure he and Connie are okay, he does want to get back to the race, but Connie just kind of steps outside and takes a moment to realize, why are we doing this? Why do we even care? Why do we even want to do this? And Steven says we gotta beat Kevin at his own game. But Connie says, why should we even play his game? What do we get out of this? At which point, when Steven fails to get an answer, he realizes, oh shit, we are obsessed with this bastard. As such, Connie, when they kind of start to realize this, Connie tells Steven that she does want to finish the race, but she doesn't want to do it to try and beat Kevin. She just wants to do it for them. And so Steven decides to try and match her resolve, and so they fuse back into Stefani, get back into the Donda, and drive down the road. And sure enough, now that they're not competing with Kevin anymore, Stefani's actually having more fun, actually maneuvering, doing well, and at one point even admiring the view from the road over Beach City, and it is a nice view. Nice view. Unfortunately, though, Kevin still ends up winning as he has the power of cheating on his side, as his car apparently has a nitro boost button, which he activates in the final stretch of the race, which pretty much allows him to win. So at first he's all gloating, but when Stefani doesn't look upset that they lost and just says good and just acts like a good sport, saying good games and wants to shake his hand, he's just like all confused and freaked out, and pretty much Stefani just says Stefani just killing him with kindness as they mention how they like the view from the road, which earlier Kevin mentioned how the view was nice, but we only did it so that he said, but you won't be seeing it because you'll be seeing my tail lights or whatever. And Stefani compliments him for the tip before getting back in the Donda and driving away, with Kevin now angry that they're not upset and shouting that how they're obsessed with him. And Stefani just kind of laughs, and that's where the episode ends. So, yeah. But anyway, now we get to the insane episode, Restaurant Wars. And if you can't tell by the smile, this is gonna be fun. Just pretty much what kickstarts this episode is that Steven is going to the Fry Shack, and while he initially is ready to order his usual order of fry bits, he decides today he's going to shake it up a bit. And well, so when he asks Petey what else they got, as he's still ordering off menu, Petey goes through his freezer, and way in the back, he finds mozzarella sticks and marinara sauce. He doesn't know why it was there, but he decides to make it for Steven. And so Steven's actually overjoyed to try it because he thinks, oh, this will be nice. And yeah, mozzarella sticks are delicious. And so he takes the mozzarella sticks and walks away. And as he dips one and takes a bite, Kofi bursts out of fish stew pizza and asks where the hell Steven got the mozzarella sticks, as pretty much all the components of them are things you would see in a pizza. And when Steven mentions that he got it from the Fry Shack, Kofi says, I knew this day would come, runs back into his restaurant, and puts up a sign that says now serving fries, which shocks Steven, until Fryman suddenly appears behind him and talks about how it begins anew with Kobe Couric just like old times, and both of them then just yelling out in a dramatic fashion, "Restaurant War!" It's stupid. It's just so stupid. And sure enough, that's what happens. They start having a restaurant war as they start trying to steal the other, as both restaurants try to steal the other's customers and start serving foods that are primarily served by the other. Like Fryman is serving deep fried pizza or pizza with fries on, or no, Or pizza with no, it's deep fried pizza with pizza bits instead of fry bits. Kofi's the one serving pizza with fries with a side of fries. It's insane, and everybody's suffering for it, and apparently people are afraid because of it. And when Steven goes to both restaurants wanting to get some food, he finds Petey in a pizza costume and asks what the hell's going on. It turns out that Kofi and Fryman had a treaty, so to speak, where they wouldn't try to steal each other's business, However, when Petey made the mozzarella sticks for Steven, he essentially broke that treaty, and so now this restaurant war is back at it and just going insane, which Steven blames himself for because he's the one that ordered the mozzarella sticks. But unfortunately, yeah, Fryman and Kofi were just nuts in this episode. As he keeps trying, as Fryman keeps trying to push all these fry-based food, all the pizza-based food on Steven, when Steven goes to Kofi's to get something to eat, Fryman tries to make him sign this big-ass contract to try and be an exclusive customer, and even says, I'll permanently mark you as a VIP member, at which point he pulls out a branding iron! It's insane! And so Steven finally calls a meeting between the kids of both sides, and says, we gotta end this war, and so their first solution is to try and fake a romance between Ronaldo and Kiki, which Ronaldo objects to at first because he says he has a girlfriend, which nobody believes, but they decide, well, let's just do that. Well, let's just pretend you're in a relationship for a little while enough to end it. And sure enough, they try it, and it almost works, until Ronaldo's girlfriend comes because she decided to bring back a DVD she borrowed from him in person, sees him making goo-goo eyes at Kiki, and runs away crying about how he's single now. And Ronaldo just breaks down crying too. It's just it hurts, but it's so funny. I don't know why. As such, with that out of the way, Steven tries thinking of another solution, and how to get this, he asked the kids, well, what happened? What made Fryman and Kofi want to stop competing in the first place? And so Kiki reveals that once upon a time, there was a restaurant in Beach City called the Everything Buffet, which literally sold everything. Again, and while it was so convenient for everybody, it almost threw the economy of Beach City out of whack because, well, it sold everything. Nobody could compete. And the only reason, however, it was because of the Everything Buffet that the treaty was put in place, as Kofi and Fryman wound up banding together to run it out of town. And so Steven thinks that if they have something to compete against again, then maybe that can end the feud. And so sure enough, Steven converts his house into a restaurant, which consists of putting a cardboard sign above his door that says Steven's, putting out a couple tables with some nice some nice atmosphere and candles around, and having the gems act as the kitchen staff, which I love how they're just going along with this. It's fun. But very much, Kofi and Fryman come with their respective kids, and so they go in and order some food, and the only things on the menu are the fantastic fries and pizza bagels, which they both are immediately scoff at, but Steven gives them their order, and sure enough, it turns out that both dishes are basically, they realize they can't compete, as the fantastic fries have ketchup baked into them, which I don't know how well that would taste, but whatever, I've never had them. Kind of want to. And the pizza bagel apparently has cream cheese in the filling, so it's an entirely new sense of flavor. And on top of that, because it's a little bagel, you can have pizza on the go. So yeah, both realize if this place stays open, we're screwed. So like before, they band together and beg Steven to close the shop down because they can't compete, which Steven agrees to, but only if they end the war and stop trying to spite each other. And so, sure enough, the restaurant war is called off. Ronaldo is still down the crapper because he doesn't have his girlfriend back, and Steven has the gems so they can help him clean up, and they say they're on break. So that's how it goes. So okay, so yeah, that's that. So let me talk about my opinion on Beach City Drift. I don't really know how to feel about this episode. I can honestly say that I don't know if I care for it or not, but I don't I think it's when it comes to my perception of its quality, it would probably go to me. It's mostly just because of the general premise of the episode. And that's because, well, did we really need Kevin back? Kevin was a character, because the thing is, Kevin was a character Kevin as a character just felt very one note. And I don't mean that in a sense of just his personality, but I mean like as a character. He existed just kind of to be this douchey guy from this one episode who tried to push Stevani and then immediately bolted when he realized that Stevani was two kids in what he called two kids in a raincoat. So essentially, I don't know about this. I don't really know if he really needed to be back, but I will say this: they definitely wrote him to be a douche. Like, well, no, like if you want to go in here expecting a complex character, don't, because the thing is, that's what Kevin is a one note character, but that's what he's supposed to be. He's arrogant, haughty, thinks he's God's gift to mankind, that that he looks fantastic, and he doesn't give two shits who he makes fun of or puts down to make himself feel good. He's just a one note, shallow jackass, and honestly, that's fine. There are people like that in the world who genuinely think that they can do or say whatever they want, and that the rest of us just exist to serve them, so to speak. So that's again, writing wise, I don't really see a problem with him. He fits the role that he's supposed to fit. But with that being said, it also feels weird to kind of have this episode kind of brought back to him. At the same time, I will say this, the moral for Beach City Drift isn't a bad one. That when it comes to these people, the best revenge against them is a life well lived. As in this case, Steven and Connie let their obsession with Kevin kind of rule them. Like they were so obsessed with making him pay, hurting him, and trying to beat him at his own game that he did end up filling up their minds. And so when they when they became Stevani, they just wanted to just take him down a peg, and they didn't care how they did it. They just wanted to beat him. Which, yeah, the more they wanted to beat him, the more Kevin was able to get inside their head, because he clearly didn't care what they had to say. He just enjoyed getting under their skin, and even like he said in the episode, this shit was just funny to him. He just liked making Steven and Connie squirm, and which honestly is creepy, if it makes any sense, because a lot of the ways he tries messing with them are very flirtatious, but the thing is, he knows Stevani is just a literal amalgamation of two kids. That's creepy and gross. It's weird. It's weird. It made me go ew at quite a few occasions. But so that's a thing, but at the same time, like I said, the moral at the end of the episode is not a bad one. That the best revenge against these people that are just jerks, that are basically, the best way to beat them is to just forget them. And ultimately, that's how Stevani beat Kevin in the end. They did. When Stevani just was focused more on trying to enjoy the race rather than trying to win, they had fun. They enjoyed themselves. When they were driving down the road and got a good look at the view of Beach City, they thought it was amazing. It was spectacular, and it was not. And I'll give credit, and I like that. I do like when Stevani is having fun. I do like that. And one of the ways that the episode showcases how Stevani is trying to just get Kevin out of their head was when they rolled their window up. As in the beginning of the race, they both Kevin and Stevani had their windows down, and that's what allowed Kevin to keep throwing insults at Stevani that kept making them more angry and obsessed with getting him. But then when they decided to just race for the heck of it, window went up. No, don't let this bastard get in your head, so to speak. So it was not. So I do kind of like that. And by the end, it does work, because Kevin clearly is a guy who's obsessed with his self-image and being the center of attention. And when Stevani stops giving him that attention and just starts treating him as if he's not important, he just immediately, the tables are turned and he gets angry at Stevani. Which, yeah, the more power you give those kind of people, the worse they can get. So basically, the best way to knock them down a peg is just not give them what they want. And that's what happens with Kevin in the end, as when Stevani is just all cool, like, oh, hey, that was a good race. That was a good race. You're right about the view. Bye. Kevin is just like, oh no, I know you're obsessed with me. I'll get you. I know you're obsessed with me. It's like, I'll show you. It's like, yeah, the tables are just immediately turned. It is kind of cathartic in that regard, especially since he was being a douche about the whole thing. But by that same token, and this is another aspect of the episode that does get under my skin, it's so weird seeing Steven react the way he does to Kevin. Which, to be fair, I kind of understand that. The guy was being a dick to the guy was being a stick to, yeah, the guy was being a dick to Steven and Connie when he wanted to try and get them to dance. He didn't care about them. No, pretty much no meant try harder, and he just was a creep, and he just creeped them out. But the way it's just that it feels weird to see this coming from Steven, if that makes any sense. Now, to be fair, it does set a precedent that I will reference in another vlog. It does set a precedent that I am probably going to reference much later, as it does showcase that while Steven is a bit more compassionate towards people, he does have some limits, and if you cross those limits, it's going to be a hard time getting back on his good side. But by that same token, it's so weird to see him get this viscerally angry. While I can see him getting upset with Kevin, that Kevin is there, I feel like that he would be one to immediately realize that this douchebag just isn't worth his time. And yet, throughout the episode, he's the one pushing to try and beat Kevin. And in fact, if anything, I think Connie's reaction feels more realistic. That she feels uncomfortable but doesn't really know how to register it. And so throughout the episode, while I do believe that they both would have Kevin on their mind when he came back, it's just the way Steven is acting, it feels weird. It feels weird, if that makes any sense. Again, maybe this is just a me thing. Maybe I'm wrong, because I haven't really dealt with other people like that. I haven't really dealt with people like that. People who act like complete jackasses and don't respect your boundaries. And anybody that I know who has tried pushing my boundaries, they're people that I know and am friends with, and the instant they realize that they did push those boundaries, they apologize, because they're not dicks. They're nice people. So I don't know. Maybe this is just a me thing. Maybe I've never encountered these kind of things because I'm eternally single. Now I made myself sad. But that's another thing. That's another topic altogether. So pretty much, it feels, I don't know, it feels weird. Again, it sets somewhat of a precedent, which I will reference later, but at the same time, it just feels very strange for Steven to be the one that gets bent out of shape. Especially since he and Connie have such varying reactions. Like I said, I feel like it would take a little bit longer. Like, I feel like it would take a bit more pushing from Kevin to get Steven to that mindset. And yet, really, Steven only had one interaction with him. And yes, he was a jerk that got Steven angry at him. But I feel like that when Steven saw Kevin in this episode, his reaction should have been like silent fury. Like, he was just angry that he was there, but didn't say anything. If anything, I think Connie's reaction felt more realistic. She was clearly uncomfortable to be around him and wanted him to just go away. But at the same time, she was still upset and wanted to try and get him back a little. That felt more realistic in that regard. It's just to see Steven acting the way he is, it feels weird. It just feels odd, a little out of character, so to speak. So that's another thing that kind of got to me a little. It feels like we needed more pushing to get Steven to the point that he was in the episode, is what I'm saying. So there's that. Again, does set a precedent that I will talk about later, but in the context of the episode, it just feels weird. With that being said, though, there is another aspect of this episode that I did find interesting. Apologies if you hear something in the background. There is a garbage truck outside. Pretty much, another precedent that I have to come back to is the hallucination. As I mentioned, back when Steven and Connie first fused into Stevani, we saw something like this before. When Stevani was at the dance and they were realizing everyone was staring at them, they started hyperventilating and they started hallucinating. Like I said, crystal ball, people growing closer and Stevani secluding themselves in the ball until Kevin came and broke them out of the hallucination. This time, however, we see a similar circumstance. While Stevani is getting angrier and angrier at Kevin, we see the world around them change. And it's clearly just from their own perception. Because from the outset, the instant that Stevani unfuses, the whole thing goes away. But while Steven and Connie are Stevani, they see the world disappear around them. It's just them and Kevin on the road, and while Stevani does question the whole thing, they stay laser focused on wanting to beat Kevin, and the more it goes, the worse things get as the road starts crumbling behind them as they drive, and what finally gets them out of it is when they see a hallucination Kevin with red eyes fly at them from Kevin's car. So yeah, it's clear that there's something up there. It doesn't get again, and the fact that we've seen this twice showcases that it does seem to correlate somewhat with Stevani's state of mind. So it's interesting. It's little nuggets spread out here and there, but it is in and which will get paid off. But it's a very interesting take, and I do like that we get to see more of it. Yeah, that we do see a bit more of it here. So I'll give you that. So yeah, overall though, Beach City Drift just kind of feels like an episode to me. It's got a good moral. It's got a good moral. It's got a good moral in that regard, and it's cool seeing Stevani again, as well as some breadcrumbs for future storytelling. It's just that the central conflict of the episode felt weird for me and just kind of off. So yeah, that's that. So again, apologies if I feel like I offended you there, but that's just how I feel. But Restaurant Wars, however, this episode is fucking insane, and I love it. Hands down, from the beginning to the end, I loved this episode. It is insane with just how crazy it can get, because it's insane. It's just nuts. Because essentially the basic premise is this: Fryman's and Kofi's are now competing with each other, but the way they portray it is just balls to the walls insane. You see Kofi and Fryman just yelling at each other, making this big dramatic entrance as they declare that the restaurant war is back on. We see people lining the streets, all of them passed out or scared as we see like pallets of fries and pizza scattered about. When Steven tries to go in for food, they both just are insane and try pushing stuff on him. It's just so crazy. And then when Steven sees Petey in a fry outfit, Petey's like, "Don't look at me, I broke the treats." It's so stupid, and I love it. It's so dumb. And the way they go about trying to fix it is still insane. Again, just when they the romance thing, it's hilarious. It's sort of a sitcom, but it's so cringy when you see it happen. When you see Ronaldo and Kiki trying to pretend to make goo eyes at each other, it just feels off. And then when it all comes crashing down, when Ronaldo's actual girlfriend shows up, showcasing that she's actually real and that she now doesn't want to see Ronaldo anymore because of this stupid misunderstanding. It's hilarious. It's sad, but hilarious, which that's another thing I could probably talk about between both of these episodes. We see more sides to Ronaldo. I still don't like him, but we see more sides to him. As when Stevani rolled up in the Dondai in the last episode, he knew what it was and what it was capable of, so apparently he likes cars too. And now in this episode, and now in Restaurant Wars, you see that he actually did have a girlfriend. A girl that looks like she's just as quirky, that she's just as much of an otaku as he is. Which, fine. Even losers deserve love. But so it is a little sad, but also just it's one of those things that you feel so sad, but you can't stop laughing. And even the solution, when Steven just does his own restaurant thing, it still just feels like a stupid solution. And the way Kofi and Fryman react when they realize the dishes Steven has they can't compete with, it's just like, at first you think they're gonna just rough Steven up until they get on their knees and say, "Please close down your store, we can't compete, look, you already have a lie," and there's onions standing outside Steven's door with a fork. It's hilarious. It's so stupid. But that's why I love it. Restaurant Wars is just balls to the walls insane and takes something as simple as two competing businesses going against each other and turns it into something all over the top and crazy. And I love it. It's just amazing, and I love it. It's just so stupid, so insane, but just all in the best way possible. So yeah, I love it. I think it's great. So Yeah, I'm probably not getting as in depth with Restaurant Wars as I was with Beach City Drift. But the thing is, Restaurant Wars is what you see is what you get. You get an insane episode with insane moments. We get insane moments, insane stupidity, which leads to honestly great comedy gold, as well as admittedly some ideas for dishes. I'm not gonna lie, I do legitimately want to try the fantastic fries and the pizza bagels now. There's actually a YouTube video out there looking for it. Look it up and tell me how it is. The point is, bottom line, the first episode, Beach City Drift is just kind of an episode to me. Episode to me as well. There are qualities about it that I can compliment it for. The episode as a whole just feels just shaky for me. Just feels shaky for me. While Restaurant Wars kind of makes up for that by being insane and crazy and just all around entertaining. So overall, yeah. We got one episode and one that's so dumb that it's amazing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I will hopefully see you next week as we maybe will be looking at some more grounded stuff. Who am I kidding? The next episode after this involves Kiki and Pizza Dream, so whatever. Well, anyway, we'll hopefully still have fun. So till then, I hope you have a good day, and take care.